Where you going, Ed? If you lived here, you'd be home by now.
When Danny Torrence rides his little bike through the endless corridors of the hotel and comes face to face with the ghosts of the twin sisters, The Shining gently allows us, along with little Danny, to cross a threshold to end up in a place we're never supposed to be. It's the liminal space that's been featured numerous times in Stephen King's broader multiverse of monsters, including It, in which the Losers Club ends up in a liminal space where reality bends and time no longer feels linear. But what are these liminal spaces in Derry, and why do they play such a trick on our minds? Let's figure that out in today's video. Number 1. The Liminal Spaces of Derry, thresholds between worlds. The concept of liminality existed in anthropology and literature way before it became a popular term in horror movies and video games, especially after the Backrooms creepypasta became cool on the internet. The term was first initiated in Arnold van Gennep's Rite of Passage, and Victor Turner added more theories to broaden its horizon. However, the thing is, liminality was considered a space from which social transformation can begin, but the horror authors inverted this, presenting liminal space as a threshold between two places, where reality transforms into an uncanny territory from which you may never return. In King's novel It, the sewer grates, the tunnels, the dirty pipes, the storm drain, and 29 Neibolt Street became some of the physical forms of liminal space, from which the victims of Pennywise struggle to find their way back. These storm drains, or the sewer grates, are the threshold between the streets and the underground, which are not ideal for human habitation, and that's why they became the lair of Pennywise. He lures his victims into the darkness of the underground, to either eat them or preserve them as food by trapping their souls in a floating state. Georgie, in the very opening of the novel, fell into this trap and crossed the threshold to retrieve his paper boat, which we all know didn't go well for him. Even the losers who come down to the sewer after entering the house on Neibolt Street, also known as the Well House, is another instance of crossing the threshold into a space where nothing seems ordinary anymore. As mentioned in the novel, when the kids went down to the smoke hole, they all lost sense of time and understanding of reality. This smoke hole, acting as a perfect example for a liminal space in Derry, created alternate realities for these kids, leading them to hallucinate a prehistoric world where Pennywise first landed on Earth as an asteroid. Though the kids returned to reality, it was one of the most dangerous and unpredictable scenes in the novel. As of now, in It, Welcome to Derry, kids have yet to enter these liminal spaces, and when they do, it's almost impossible to predict whether anyone will make it out alive, because so far, no one is quite safe in this show. Number 2. The Deadlights. What and where are they? Deadlights, the truest form of Pennywise, can be considered a metaphysical form of liminal space, or a gateway to a world where reality has lost all meaning, because an abandoned structure like a haunted house or a dark underground forewarns the victims about something uncanny going to happen, while Deadlights don't appear as an understandable form to its victim to figure out or assess the level of threat. Deadlights appeared as pulsating orange lights whirling around inside of Pennywise's throat. Their blinding radiance flickers and shifts, hypnotizing anyone who experiences them. This particular appearance is just what the human mind can perceive, as it's almost impossible for an ordinary human being to know what it actually is. It was considered that the Deadlights could have been the most ancient form of Pennywise when it landed on Earth as a meteor crashed. Created in a world outside of Earth, these Deadlights were once manipulated by the Dark Lord, Crimson King, in the Dark Tower series. The Deadlights, according to the King novel, can cause a lot of pain to the soul it's able to capture, and that has been vividly established in both the novel It and its film adaptations. Pennywise, upon capturing his victims, stretches his grin far enough to get his countless needle-like teeth to come out to expose the swirling deadlights from his throat. These lights act as a liminal space where every rule of time and reality is disrupted, and victims lose their consciousness and sanity once and for all, forever being trapped inside those flickering lights. Number 3. What happens when you're taken? Victim's fate in It. Pennywise simply doesn't eat all his victims at once. Yeah, he might have killed poor Georgie to set the stage, but that was just a starter. This monster let all his victims float down the sewer in a catatonic state forever, without having any idea of time or reality. Their consciousness has been shifted to a different dimension, and they no longer belong to this world. Pennywise eats his victims one by one, and those floating states act more like a refrigerator, storing his food for him to enjoy later. Beverly Marsh was one of the first victims of Pennywise to experience the Deadlights and fall into a catatonic state. state. It was almost impossible for her to live, because she had already started floating down the sewer with the rest of the victims as the creature began devouring her soul. But the rest of the losers rescued her and got her back to reality by showing affection and love that were stronger than Pennywise's powers. However, it wasn't just Beverly who fell into this trap, but many other townspeople in Derry who floated in an unconscious state and had slowly succumbed to death. The losers were exposed to the deadlights many times in the film, like Richie, who instantly lost consciousness after looking at them. But luckily he was saved by Eddie and was able to rejoin the club to finish the monster. Number 4. Derry as a macro-liminal space. The dirty, damp sewer and the well house on Neibolt Street were both the kind of threshold that invites the victims to a reality where insanity begins. But before the kids even came down to the sewer to investigate Pennywise, they had been haunted by different forms of this entity, sometimes as a painting that comes alive, sometimes as an ominous balloon, and sometimes as Pennywise himself. Almost every known place in the house, the bedroom, the study, or the washroom, became the haunting playground for this monster. But these are the places for human habitation, and very familiar ones for these losers. So why do they act as a liminal space where the rules of reality are often suspended? It's not only these forbidden places in town, but also the entire town became possessed by Pennywise, turning into a single macro-liminal space where anything can happen at any time. Basically, by just being one of the residents of this town, one has already crossed a threshold, inviting oneself to a dangerous and unpredictable reality. Pennywise takes shelter in their minds once and forever, feeding on their fear and negative emotions to control their every step and make them commit violence. Similarly, in It, Welcome to Derry, kids have not yet been inside those dark and damp underground places, but the monster reached out to them in the mall, in the theater, and even in their bedroom, foretelling that no place is quite safe for these children. Another prominent example is Charlotte Hanlon walking through her new neighborhood of Derry, where everything seems new and uncertain to her. As she passes through every street and shop of Derry, she finally witnesses a very weird situation, when a group of boys are fighting and bullying a kid, and no one is intervening to stop them. It doesn't happen in reality, but Derry isn't reality, or maybe a form of altered reality that Charlotte couldn't understand yet, because she hadn't been exposed to Pennywise's dark influence on her mind. Number 5. The Macroverse, the ultimate liminal space. Many levels of liminal space can be seen throughout Pennywise's story, but the ultimate can be the Macroverse, the birthplace of this monster and many other supernatural beings. Macroverse is an infinity beyond infinity, an endless void where the typical rules of time and identity of our world don't apply at all. This endless void was most likely created by a godlike entity called Gan, also known as the Other, who created the 6 beams guarding this Macroverse, with their 12 supernatural custodians, who are the hare, bear, horse, dog, eagle, elephant, rat, wolf, turtle, fish, bat, and lion. Amongst them, the turtle named Maturin is the most superior of all, a giant benevolent creature that protects our universe. However, the main problem with this turtle is that it sleeps a lot and has stomach problems that cause it to vomit the entire universe, including the Earth. However, Maturin later died in King's novel after choking on a galaxy. Pennywise, in the meantime, was created in this Macroverse, but throughout the Thinnies, it came to our world, with the supernatural powers of shapeshifting and controlling the human mind. Some theories suggest that these deadlights, acting as a gateway to insanity, capture the souls of the victims to send their consciousness back to the Macroverse, where they lose their self-identities and become just a floating matter in the infinity. Number 6. Metaphor and trauma. Why its liminal spaces matter. Liminal space is indeed a very real phenomenon, not only a horror trope in movies and literature. It really exists, and you and I, we've all been in this space, sometimes physically, and all the time emotionally. Have you ever experienced being stuck in an elevator, not knowing when you will reach your floor or whether you will get out of this place? All the horrific thoughts that clatter around your head at this point make a perfect example of being in the liminal space. Emotional liminal spaces are a lot worse, as sometimes you're stuck in between 2 most important decisions in your life, and both lead to transformation, but you fear choosing, either because of the uncertainty of the future, and mostly because of your fear of change. Just like that, liminal spaces in Derry, whether it's a sewer grate or the freaking Macroverse, are just a metaphor for the fear of being stuck in between. This fear is worse than any monster's grasp, because uncertainty haunts us even more. It makes us question our reality and heightens the existential crisis. Sometimes, to ignore this duality, people often go off the rails to distract themselves by abusing drugs and doing immoral activities, allowing their inner demons to manipulate them. Pennywise acts just like an inner demon for the entire town of Derry. Being stuck in a macro-liminal space, the townspeople are now in between choosing their conscience and losing their consciousness to Pennywise's influence. Marvelous verdict. Liminal space is one of the most twisted theories incorporated into many horror films, which makes the audience feel like they're in the same zone, sharing the discomfort and fear of uncertainty with the protagonist of the story. Just like we all might have felt the dread when the losers first went down the sewer or confronted the monster. And in It, Welcome to Derry, we're about to get that same experience once again. So on that note, our video is over. If you've liked our content, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. And please leave a comment on your thoughts about this. Until then, goodbye, and see you in the next one.